My name is BoYee, Nataraja, and I'm here with a very, very, very special guest. His name is Professor Spira. A lot of you already know him, but he's new to my audience, and I'm just so excited. I just want to say that right now, so in case I get flustered or I start blushing or I pass out, that's why, because I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge, huge fan. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for talking to me, interviewing me about one of my favorite subjects, Mucusless Diet Healing System.
That's right. Oh, yes. I totally forgot to introduce people to you. Okay, so basically, Professor Spira, he is a huge visionary of the Mucusless Diet Healing System. If you haven't read this, please read it. I'll put links below and everything as well. He's not only a huge visionary, he's an educator, an author. He is a musician, a professional jazz trombonist. And yeah, he does so much more, but just those are some of the main highlights we're going to go over because that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how to transition into the mucusless diet for people who are totally new to it. We're going to talk about spirituality and also about the arts, like how diet can have an effect on your craft as a musician and me as a dancer. So we're going to go over a few of those topics. But first, I'd like for you to introduce yourself to us a little bit about how your health used to be in the past. You know, just tell us all of that, and then where you're at now. Just your history with any health problems you had, all of that.
All right. Well, yeah. So I've been practicing the mucusless diet about 13 years and almost 14 years now. Basically what happened growing up, I was always the big kid. You know, I was always kind of the pudgy fat guy that would get made fun of. And so I kind of had that experience. But I also had a lot of ailments growing up. They had me on pharmaceutical medications when I was 7 years old. That I had kept taking all the way until I got into the diet until I was 19 years old for allergies, and I would have ear infections all the time and bronchitis and just all kinds of just painful ailments and things in my head area. I had would get chronic migraine headaches all the time. I was always taking some kind of cold and flu, something for cold and flu-like symptoms. You know, they give you all those medications and amoxicillins and all that kind of stuff. So I was always at the doctor doing that. Yet I was also a really active person. For as much as I was going through on the health side, I kind of ignored it or just sort of pushed through it. I was real active in the Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. Was real active in sports. I played the soccer growing up, and then ultimately played football for 6 years in high school. And I had my little period of acting and music, and that was really my passion. You know, I liked. Really with football, I kind of liked it for the wrong reasons. I kind of liked football just because it was there. The way I look at it is, it was such a stimulating kind of experience that I connect with mucus stimulation, because you really only enjoy that when you're really hopped up on mucus. We'll talk more about that if that sounds weird to some folks that never heard that concept. But
right.
You know, just running out there and everybody's cheering for you and stuff, and it's so I kind of it's just such a big stage, and I'm a performer, so I like being on stage, and so that I looked at the football field as like a stage, you know, but I didn't really have a passion for it like I had a passion for music. And that was I didn't have to have an audience for my music. I could play my music for myself and be totally happy. And so when it came time for college, that's where I decided, okay, I'm going to go into music. I'm going to follow this path. It's the hardest path of all the ones that I could have went. You know, I could have went and did football, and I'd probably be done playing by now. 33 years old. A lot of professional football players, if I'd even got to that, which I probably wouldn't have as an average football player. But that's a tough path to follow just physically.
It is.
A lot of people look at sports figures and they're always like, oh, wow, I want to be like that. But they don't realize, you start looking at the statistics of how long and what quality of life a lot of these, football players and a lot of these professional athletes have. They have so much pain, and a lot of them die in their 50s and all kinds of stuff, brain injuries and all that kind of thing. And so it's definitely not a longevity kind of thing. But that's a problem with the society. They don't value longevity. It's not about longevity. It's about right now. I want to get high and happy and eat my steak right now and that kind of thing. So basically, in college, I was studying music, but then I met Willie Smart, a.k.a. Brother Air, and he told me about the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And up to that point, I had studied a lot of other diets, and I'd tried the little fads and the pills and the weight loss, to try to lose weight. And then I used to work out, every day real hard in the weight room and all that kind of stuff. And I had like 18-inch biceps, and I did the whole big guy thing. And but when I met Brother Air, he just sort of hit me with this information that was just, and really, I remember the day it happened. Me and my friend were sitting at this jam session, and they had this free food. And it was like all these chicken wings and stuff.
Oh, goodness.
And so I had this big thing of chicken wings in front of me, and I'm just eating. And I look over at Brother Air, and he just kind of looks at us with this look like he's got to say something now, because he had sort of held his tongue for a long time and didn't really want to get into it, much. But this time he just was like, no, I got to say something now. And so he was like, well, he just started, I don't even remember the details of what he said, but all I remember is as he was talking, my hand kept getting slower to the point where I was no longer eating those chicken wings on their plate. And so that changed my life. I went after that, was inspired to go get Mucusless Diet Healing System, and read it. And I knew before I ever read it, I had a feeling that this was going to change my life, that this was going to be everything was going to change after I read it. So I kind of, like a lot of people do, right before I read it, I had like my last meals and kind of just went out and just sort of splurged, like, all right, this is it. Because I have a feeling that after I read this book, this world is going to look so different to me. And that's what happened. And so there was a few things that led up to that, as far as I was into self-help, even though in high school I did the high school thing and had this, football player public image and did my music and stuff. But then I was also into self-help, and I started reading up on different spiritual principles and studying religions of the world. And I studied Kriya Yoga for a minute, and Sedona method, and all these different things, and that kind of led me to the Mucusless diet. By the time I got to the Mucusless diet, I was ready for it, kind of from my path, took me through these other modalities, and then it was like, okay, well, this is what I needed. Like, this was what was missing from the yoga or from any of these other disciplines.
Beautiful. Wow, thank you for sharing all of that. So can you tell, because I was reading, your bio and your books. So your heaviest weight, it was in the book, it's a 290, right?
Yeah. I really got up to 300, but I don't even list that. I probably should. I probably should have just said 300, but I didn't want to I was 280 for a long time, and then at my worst, I don't know how long I was, maybe up in between 290 and 300, but I did get up that heavy, because I even think I went to the doctor and they had me at like 300 when they weigh, they weigh you and stuff. And so that was my heaviest. And it wasn't good, because I was starting to develop like a double chin, and I was going down the path of becoming obese, because in high school I always worked out a lot. And and I didn't eat as bad as I started to eat once I got into college, because everybody does. You call it, the college, let's say the freshman 15 or whatever, where everybody kind of gains weight. And I've watched a lot of people go from looking okay after high school to after that first year of college, they destroy their body. Just
yes,
and
yes.
and so with me, of course, because I was such a glutton, instead of 15 pounds, I gained like 30 pounds. So that's why I went from 250 up to 280 and just sort of was up there. And it was interesting. Just what later on, what I was kind of touching on before is the way that we look at the eating process. And when you're eating things that are unnatural, is they essentially are stimulants. They stimulate you and make you high. Now we're using the word high just to say any kind of altered state of consciousness. So we're not sort of using the scientific definition of like an upper and a downer and all that. It's just it's all drugs and it's all making you high. So
definitely,
when you eat mucus or pus, so say you eat like a hamburger. First of all, your body doesn't need it. It can't use it. You've been taught that it can. You've been taught that, oh, you need this, and which that would be some kind of strange alchemy if your body actually could use dead animal flesh. Turn something dead that's like slimy and sort of to put that in your body and turn that into like life. That doesn't even actually make any sense, just if you think about it. But
true. I never even thought of it like that. Yes.
Right. I mean, they've come up with this entire theoretical construct within medical science, that kind of thing, and human physiology and stuff. But it's based on wrong assumptions. If you base an entire science on a wrong theory, then you have to go back and reevaluate it, retest the theory, and when you do that, it can change everything. And that's what folks like Thomas Kuhn, people like read, if they're into reading, check that book out, the Structure of Scientific Revolutions, where science becomes that, because everybody likes to say, well, something that's not scientific, or this is like, I mean, most of the people that say that, when they say, oh, well, that's not really scientific, first of all, they're not scientists. They're not up on what is going on within the academic science community. They're not reading the scientific journals and stuff. They saw something on BuzzFeed or something,
right.
And they're reading, according to one study. It's like, but it's not about one study. If you actually want to have a conversation about science, you have to deal with repeated studies over, a dozen studies on the same thing. Then we can have a conversation about, okay, well, let's look at that. But again, when the other problem with that is, whatever you want to prove, you can find a scientific study to support whatever it is you want to try to prove to somebody. So if you're a vegan, you can find scientific studies say, oh, veganism is what it is. If you're a meat eater, you can find meat eating, scientific studies, paleo scientific. I mean, you can find whatever you want that's done by accredited people. What I'm seeing is we have to almost move into this era of like philosophy. The word philosophy means lover of wisdom. For me, it's about wisdom and less about science. As a philosopher, you draw from science, and Eric was a true philosopher, and people have to understand that when they read the Mucusless Diet Healing System. He's coming out of the tradition of the Leonardo da Vinci's and folks like that basically the old school philosophers were not just one thing. They were engineers, they were artists, they were visionaries, they were science. They just did everything. And Eric kind of comes out of that tradition. When he uses the word science, he's using it within that context, that historical context of not the sort of the modern, really narrow vision of an academic science, but a science insofar as the word science means like lover of knowledge, or knowledge as the root of it. And
wow, that's a great point. Yes, that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. So to touch on, okay, so the because in the book, it doesn't talk about diseases. It talks about how you heal yourself naturally, right? So what are some of the
Right.
conditions that you healed yourself from? You said you had diabetes and the asthma, all of that. So you've healed yourself from all of those conditions
Yeah.
completely?
Well, I didn't specifically have diabetes, but
Oh, okay.
or at least, or they didn't tell me that. They didn't use that word with me, you know, because a lot of these things are words, and what we try to do is say, okay, the symptoms are real. So
Yes.
whatever you're going through, you can sort of identify what those symptoms are. If it helps that you look at what certain symptoms go along with certain so-called diseases, that might be able to be useful to you in Mucusless diet. And of course, I've had to give the disclaimer, I'm not giving any kind of medical advice. Go somewhere else, go to a doctor, whatever, if that's what you want. But if you're interested in a natural path of healing and some other options that have helped other people do things within their life, then this is the information for you. But I had chronic bronchitis all the time. I was always sick, always blowing my nose. I would go through, it was common for me within a week to maybe go through 2 or 3 boxes of tissues. And then if I was actually sick, I could go through 2 or 3 boxes of tissues a day. It's just my nose was just running and running and running. And, the post-nasal drip is, there's certain things that people don't even talk about that are the most uncomfortable. You know, there's nothing like that post-nasal drip where it's just all sore in the back of your throat and your sinuses. And I just thought that was normal. You know, I thought that was just my genetics. That's what I inherited because my mother had been really sick. She passed away when I was in 6th grade, but I spent a lot of time with her in nursing homes and hospitals up into that point where she finally passed. And so I really got a lot of, just a lot of experience that a lot of young people don't get. And I saw a lot of things that most young people don't see just within that realm. And it definitely contributed to me being ready for the Mucusless diet and this information, because you have to be ready for this.
Yes.
Physiologically, this is for everybody because it is the human diet.
Right.
But psychologically and spiritually, and there's a lot of people that might not be ready yet for this.
Yes. Yes. And I'd like to talk about that. Because like you said, you have to be ready for it. It takes a lot of discipline. And to be honest, when I got these books, I flipped through them and things like that. And then there was a time when I was like, all right, I want to start, but I'm scared to even start. And I had them like sitting on the side of my bed, I don't know, for like a month or 2 months. Like they just sat there because I was scared to even like commit to something like this. And I knew this diet would work. It's just, like you said, it's scientifically proven based on that context you gave us with what science really is. And then it was a few months later after I got these books, I had messaged you and asked you, okay, specifically, how do you do the enemas then? Okay, I was finally ready to start. And so my question is, actually, first, I'd love to have you explain to my audience what that formula is, that equation is, with, like what you put in, what you put out. Because once I got that equation through my head, I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. That's why all these fad diets really don't work. Because I did the fruitarianism, I did the raw vegan, and I thought, okay, this is the one. I found the diet that's gonna heal me. I'm gonna feel great, but eventually it didn't feel good. And until I figured out, oh, I'm supposed to do enemas and intermittent fasting in a very careful and mindful way, then it'll work. Right. So can you explain that equation I'm talking about for everyone, please?
Talk about V equals P minus O. Vitality equals power minus obstruction. Essentially what that represents is if you were to relate it, say, to a car engine, you would, an engineer might say energy equals power minus friction. So if you don't change the oil in your car for 5 years and it starts to get all gunky in the engine, then at a certain point, the engine isn't really going to work as well, and it's going to come to a standstill. It's going to be too much friction for it to be able to function. When there's no friction, it works fine and it moves fine. You know, another example with a car would be trying to put sand in the gas, where unleaded gas is supposed to go. If you put sand in there, how far are you going to go? Or you water down the gas with sand. There's obstruction in there, and it's not meant to run on sand. It's supposed to run on gasoline. Well, the human body is, as Eric calls it, an air gas engine. So we take it all the way back and we say, okay, well, let's put the food over there for a second, and let's just look at the body, how it sustains itself moment to moment. Because you can go a couple days without food and not die. Everybody knows that. But you can't go 5 minutes without air. So air is premium. It's the most important thing in our lives is our breath. And so you would think that with air and breathing being so important to humanity, that we would have institutions and colleges and, you know, millions of scientific, like we would have all of this effort and energy that goes into the breathing process. But no, we have all that kind of energy going into, you know, how best to that's kind of, you say how best to change someone's bedpan, you know, that kind of like just the amount of money that is spent, the billions and billions of dollars that go into hospitals, to the technology in these hospitals. If we were to take just a portion of that money and put it into the science of breath, redirect the value system just a little bit to what's important, because it's important to take, especially the degree to which we've gotten ourselves in this mess as humans, where we've gotten so far away from nature. We got to take care of ourselves. We got to take care of our sick people. So fine, but let's start putting, because first of all, one of the worst, saddest things in the society to me is hospitals that serve. You walk into a hospital, there's a Coke machine
I know.
an institution of healing. You got a Coke machine. You got all kinds of treats and goodies machine, and you go in, and what are they serving people? I don't see big salads. I don't see a lot of fruit. I might see a fruit cup with fruit and corn syrup, and then they'll have some kind of meat concoction, meatloaf, and maybe some canned vegetables or something, and that's the meal that they're trying to give people for healing. I mean, that you don't have to look no further than that to see that all of these so-called authorities don't know nothing about healing, about what's going on.
Thank you.
When it comes to real, true healing.
Right. When I step into hospitals, like visit a friend or something, that just always floors me. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But like I said before, you're a visionary and so am I. And I feel like just spreading this awareness, this education, well, you know, it can help a lot of people, whoever it touches and makes sense to, and whoever's ready to hear this. So going back to that formula, just want to talk more specifically about the enema process and how important. Oh, I lost you. Do you see me? Shoot. Can you hear me? I don't see you or hear you. Technical difficulties. Hello, hello. Let's see here. Let's see. Shoot, I can't hear you or see you. Oh, I hear something. Okay, I think I see you now. Hold on. All right. Okay, so he's trying to get back on. Not sure what happened here. But anyway, I'll just continue on. So what I wanted to talk to Professor Spira about was basically how important enemas are, because it unclogs you. And that was the missing component for me when I was trying these different diets, when I went raw vegan, when I went fruitarian, like just cold turkey, and I had a lot of issues. The transition wasn't easy. Let's see. Okay, I'll try again to connect with him soon. So he's trying to get back on here. But anyways, once I landed on the Mucusless Diet Healing System and I read the book, it just made so much sense. Like, you've got to clear the toxins that you've been accumulating all these years you've been eating poorly, for the fresh fruits and vegetables that you're taking in, for you to like absorb those nutrients properly. And I just wasn't aware of that. So now I try to do daily lemon distilled water enemas. And I'm telling you, this is the key to health. You got to clear out that junk, clear out your colon, and right away you'll feel so much better. So that's why I really wanted to share his work, or it's Eric's work, but he annotated the book, and he's a huge visionary of this movement. So I just wanted him to get on here to explain that to you, but I'm explaining it now. I mean, I can testify to it. I've been doing this for a few months now, about maybe 2 months of just the enemas along with eating cleaner. Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi. Man.
No worries. No worries. I'm glad you told me to keep talking, because I didn't realize, yeah, people can still see me.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I was just, yeah. I haven't never done a live interview of live yoga classes. But anyway, I was just telling people how I've been, ever since I implemented the daily enemas, I've just been seeing like the huge change. And that was a missing link to why the previous diets didn't really work for me. Like they didn't last. I didn't feel so good after a period of time. But, you know, I'm not 100% on the mucusless diet yet. I'm still transitioning. But just the enemas alone, I can feel a huge difference. So I just wanted to emphasize that to people who are thinking of switching their diets. What would you say? Would you say it's, you know, not, maybe even not safe to transition into a diet without the irrigation, the colon irrigation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important aspect of the of just the whole cleansing process. It's the missing link for a lot of people, a lot of folks that are trying to get into the raw foodism and getting into all these different systems. They, you know, some of them are really against enemas or colon irrigation or anything along those lines, and they're against it, having not ever tried it or done it. They've listened to, because the thing about that is we're really the only people that someone could talk to about doing enemas for long periods of time, because people will say, well, I read something online, or I heard something, my doctor, who has 32 feet of impacted intestines,
by the way,
yeah, told me that you know, I'll get addicted to it, or I'll do this, or I won't be able to go to the bathroom on my own, or whatever it was that they said. But they never tried it. And
Right.
we've tried, you know, we're the ones that have done it for years and years. And
it's a few months for me, but you've done, yeah, for years.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I tell people is basically just do it for 2 weeks, you know, so you don't have to, you know, worry about like, oh, I got to do this forever. Just do it every day for 2 weeks. And along with changing your diet up, so you're eating, you have to be totally mucus free, but look at the methodology that Eric explains, you know, that he expounds upon. That, you know, when you put your trust in the system and really work the system, and the system consists not only of just what food is good to eat, what food's not, kind of thing, but the system is